Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Comic Boom Comic Source collaboration. It's your DC Spotlight for the week of October 29th, 2025. Only 4 DC books out this week, so a little bit of a shorter episode, maybe, but we're also going to talk about some independents because people have been asking. I'm really sad that we have not been able to get back on our weekly independent. We were doing a totally separate independent episode over on the Comic Source channel every Wednesday, but kind of fell off for reasons. I'm very sad that we haven't been able to get that back going. But just a lot of stuff going on. Just such a busy time, both for good reasons and the normal life reasons. I still haven't done my New York Comic Con wrap up episode, which has been frustrating. But I have been getting out the content from New York Comic Con, the interviews that I did over there. Hope you've been checking them out over on the Comic Source YouTube channel. Also, the Blue Jays are in the World Series. You can see Rocky's got his Blue Jay hat on. So, I don't begrudge him wanting to watch his beloved Canadian baseball team, as opposed to recording and me regurgitating stories about New York Comic Con. But that being said, man, I got some stories. Especially the story of, for me and for the people that I spent time with at New York Comic Con, namely our friend Trevor, the New York Comic Con 2025 will always be the story of me sneaking into the Marvel party by using the name of a Marvel creator, and it's a fantastic story. I'm embarrassed by my behavior, my drunken behavior. There's reasons for it, which I'll get into when I tell the story.
Oh, you were
I'm not going to name names or anything, but yeah, not my finest moment, but it happened, and it will always be the defining event of New York Comic Con 2025. So I do hope to get, and I do have footage of the show floor and whatever. So I do hope to get that out at some point before New York Comic Con 2026, hopefully. I've also been continuing to do interviews. I've been trying not to do as many just because I am so busy. And in fact, I'm traveling again next week for my day job. I leave on Tuesday morning. I won't be home until late Friday. And there's going to be more travel in my future with the day job, which, when I took the job, it was like, maybe once every, couple, 3 months, you be gone for a couple days. And that's not turning out to be the case. That has been the case. I've done even less travel than that. But just where my company is right now, I just need to be on the road a little bit more. So, it is what it is. It's a first world problem. I get hotel points and miles from my, airline miles or whatever. So when I do take trips, I'll be able to use those for my family or whatever. So totally first person or first world problem. But again, it takes away from comics and what have you. So we are going to talk a little bit about independence. We are going to talk about the DC books this week. We didn't rank them for a couple of reasons. First of all, there's only 4, so can't really do a top 5. And honestly, for me, this was maybe the worst week since the All In started. The books just didn't speak to me. Not that they're not good, they're just not for me. But anyway, the other episode that's coming out today is an interview with comic writer Cullen Bunn, who I actually interviewed at New York Comic Con as well. He has a horror novel, his first adult. He's done some YA novels before. This is his first adult prose novel. It's called Bones of Our Stars, Blood of Our World. I read the entire thing on Saturday because he sent me a review copy, and I was like, hey, do you want to talk about it? He's like, sure. So I needed to read it. I thought I'll read some of it, give me enough to talk about, right? I couldn't put it down. I read it all in one day. It was so good. I highly recommend it. Go check out the episode. Again, Bones of Our Stars,
really
Blood of
grown
Our
as a
World.
writer. He's really grown.
Yeah.
He's very prolific as a comics writer. He's really gotten really good.
Yeah, if you like things like Harrow County or Deluge that he's doing with Ignition Press or Sixth Gun, this has elements of all that. It's so good. So you can pre-order it from Amazon or wherever. I highly recommend that. And then Sia Ohm, I just did an interview with her. She's doing her first Kickstarter for a book called Neo Wonderland, which is a whole lot of fun. And it's also it's her first sketchbook. So you can get the first issue of her comic, which is a 40-page comic, as well as a sketchbook for like $40. It's a hell of a deal. So I encourage you guys to check that out. And then I'm doing some other interviews, maybe going to the comic book block party in LA. So yeah, a lot of stuff going on. And I've been trying to get caught up on comics as well. And we'll talk about that when we get to the indie part of the show. But yeah, overall, I just didn't feel like this week of DC was that strong. So it didn't feel like it was worth rating them, and didn't, spoiler warning, but I didn't pick a DC book for book of the week. I'll talk about my favorite book that came out this week, but it's not a DC title. So Anyway, I'll throw it over to you, Rocky. How'd you feel about the week of DC books overall?
Oh, well, first of all, it's an annuals week. It's a fifth, it's the fifth
That's
week of
true.
October.
That's
So,
true.
I mean, it's we gotta that's a significant caveat in my mind because you know often we get anthologies, DC anthologies, and I'm not generally a huge fan of anthologies, although occasionally they'll impress me. But we got, I thought Batman: The Long Halloween this week ended. I thought it was good. I thought it was good. It was better than a lot of the previous issues, and I enjoyed also the wrap up of Batman and Robin, Mark Waid and Chris Samnee. I thought that was. I thought that was actually pretty good. I have a much more positive view this week than you do, but we'll talk about it. And but I agree with you that certainly in terms of I mean the indie comics are really kicked butt this week, and I won't spoil anything, but I suspect that that particular indie comic might be something you're going to be talking about. We'll talk about indie comics at the end of it because we'll have some time, and that was one of the requests of the people who were listen to us. They said if we were specifically requested to maybe talk a little bit about our favorite indies this week since it's a shorter week. So, and that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, maybe that's why the DC books didn't land for me as well. I've been reading so much independent, getting caught up on stuff, and it's so much more diverse. So anyway, before we dive into the books, open up another pack of these Fleer Brilliance cards. I don't know if you guys can see that. Kicking it off with a Bizarro, which looks pretty cool. Next up, we have Maxwell Lord, very appropriate, recently played by
Yeah.
Sean Gunn in the film. Next
Yep.
up, classic cover. Oh, this one is super appropriate. This just came out, facsimile edition of Action Comics 252 last week. First appearance of Supergirl. We've got an Eradicator. Pretty cool. And finishing it up with very underrated Superman family character, Val Zod. Really sad that we never got that rumored Michael B. Jordan Val Zod movie. I think he would have
Yeah,
done a
that'd have been cool. Yeah,
yeah,
I agree.
fantastic. Yeah, maybe be revived with the idea of James Gunn running things. And I don't know if you're aware of the rumors, Rocky, that David Zaslav is shopping Warner Brothers around, possibly to be purchased by NBC Universal or
Yeah.
Paramount, which is now owned by the Ellison family. Larry Ellison, second richest man in the world, guy who owns Oracle. His son is running Paramount. So anyway, I mean, I'm not opposed to somebody. I mean, Zaslav has done a terrible job, as we all know. But we did get the Superman movie out of it, which a lot of people have enjoyed. And he does seem to be leaving
Yeah.
the comics alone. But yeah, I mean, it's
I
no
want
surprise
James
AT
Gunn.
and T.
Yeah, I want James Gunn to be able to complete. I like James Gunn. I know he's been getting some slack with the way the Peacemaker ended and what have you, but I think people are being, I think, far too hard on James Gunn. I like his movies. Let him complete his vision. I mean, good grief. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm just getting more easygoing in my old age, but I've been enjoying
Well, I
James
mean,
Gunn. Let him.
I would be very surprised. I mean, again, we don't know, and it's just rumors of these deals. NBC Universal, like apparently David Ellison has made 3 different offers, like hard concrete offers
Yeah,
to purchase Warner Brothers from Discovery, and they have not, and they've rejected them all. But I mean, here's the thing: like AT&T actually still owns the controlling interest, even though they've ceded control to Discovery, which is must be because AT&T made a terrible decision to buy the Warner Brothers empire and didn't know how to run it and were running into the ground, and so then sold a minority stake to Discovery with the stipulation that Discovery would have control, even though they didn't own the majority of it. So who knows the machinations behind it or whatever.
yeah,
But yeah, David Ellison has come out and said, even if he were to purchase it, which I can't imagine. I mean, he just bought Paramount, and now he's going to buy Warner Brothers. I imagine there's going to be antitrust lawsuits and all that or whatever. But he has gone on the record as saying he would want James Gunn to continue what he's doing. We don't know anything about NBC Universal, if they've made an
yeah.
offer or what they would do or whatever. But it's all pie in the sky stuff. But again, I only mention it because I think Zaslav's done a terrible job with his austerity measures and it's just ridiculous. So anyway, that's another podcast topic for an entirely different day. Let's dive into the books this week. I'm not really going to have that much to say because I didn't particularly enjoy them, but the Long Halloween, the last Halloween, does finish with issue 10 of 10, written by Jeff Loeb, art by Matteo Scalera, colors by Dave Stewart, letter and design by Richard Starkings, and I appreciated it ending, and which is kind of a backhanded compliment, I suppose. But I, and it all turns out it's Holiday's killer is Gilda, just like it always was before. It wasn't. It just, as much as I love Tim Sale, and I do feel like the last or the Long Halloween rather is a seminal work from him and Jeff Loeb. This felt a little bit like, why does this need to exist? And I get that it's a tribute to Tim Sale, and for that reason, I'm glad that it does exist, because I think all the artists did a good job of not necessarily aping the style, copying the style of Tim Sale, like brushstroke by brushstroke, or pencil stroke by pencil stroke, but just in their own way, evoking Tim Sale's style. I thought everybody did a fantastic job. So for that reason, I'm glad this exists. But narratively, I don't think this adds anything to the kind of the Long Halloween, universe, if you will. Now, maybe if I were to sit down and reread it all in one sitting, I might feel differently. It might come together a little bit more for me. But here's the thing of why I don't think that's the case. I just reread The Long Halloween, the original, before the
Mhm.
first issue of this came out, because I hadn't read it in years. And I sort of felt like the cohesion of that story isn't as good as it could be. I feel like that story also feels a little bit disjointed to me. You really have to, I think, put a lot into Loeb's narrative structure, um, and really kind of read and reread it to really put it all together. Um, which is interesting because I haven't read a ton of Jeff Loeb's stuff, but the guy is revered in comic circles for some of the stuff that he's done. Uh, but with rereading The Long Halloween, the original, recently, and liking it less than I ever had, and then with the success of this, or lack thereof, for me personally, and what's going on with Hush 2, I'm sort of like, I don't need to read any Jeff Loeb stuff. Like if he came out with something like an indie, I don't know that I'd pick it up, because the quality hasn't been there for me with his recent work. So anyway, that's just how I feel about it. Obviously, other people's may feel differently, but yeah, I yeah, it just didn't work for me. But
Right.
maybe I do owe it to Tim Sale to reread this in its entirety and see if it lands a little better as a collected edition. So anyway, what are your thoughts, Rocky?
Well, I have not recently reread the original Long Halloween. However, I don't remember enjoying. I enjoyed this sequel, this last Halloween. Um, I just enjoy this more. I actually think now. When you say, it's interesting that you say you don't see what this brings to the narrative in terms of, was this necessary? I actually thought it was a nice additive, because it sort of fills in the gap for me. At least it shows in, because this was at a period of time when Gotham was transitioning from a city run by gangsters and mobsters to a city that became ran by crazy people like the Joker and the Penguin and Batman's rogues. And so this sort of represents that transition period. And that was right in the heart of that. And it feels, where Hush 2 has been a failure in my eyes, and just feels disjointed and out of time, and it doesn't and out of and wonky in terms of continuity. This actually feels better. This Long Halloween feels like it genuinely takes place. It's closer, almost within a year after the last Halloween. It even lines up. It actually ends right before Catwoman goes off to Rome, where her series by Jeff Loeb begins with what's it called? The One in Rome series, or that she has. leaves for Rome to deal with that. So this fits in continuity wise within the Long Halloween structure, and I think it just works. And I thought I actually enjoyed it that much more. I like the ending with Gilda. I like the ending with Two Face. I actually thought that this was one of the most enjoyable one of the more enjoyable chapters. And in fairness, I think that I because I've got the original hardcover of the Long Halloween, I will be getting this in hardcover as well. I think this is going to read much better as a whole. Going to read much better actually, and I want to give just a final tribute and a shout out to Jeff Loeb and to all the artists that contributed. I thought all of them did a phenomenal job. There were times I can't name all the artists now. My memory's not that good, unfortunately. But let's just say that there were individual issues in this 10 issue series where I could have sworn it was Tim Sale doing the art if I were to just like glancing through the pages. But and that's a high compliment because these artists not only brought their A game, but they truly did understand the homework assignment. They were paying tribute to Tim Sale and in the most extraordinary way. And I thought the narrative at least was consistent with the first volume. And so, yeah, overall, I thought this was probably there's only 4 comics we're reviewing this week for DC, but this one is probably heartfelt to me. Was probably my favorite.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong in that it shows the transition from mob to supervillain. Um, Tim Sale specifically, when we had him on the show, um, before this launched, that was specifically something that he called out that he wanted to show. Um, but I don't think you need 10 issues to do that. And the thing is, that's sort of plot B, right? Plot A being the holiday killer, or you could call him 1A and 1B. And I do find that interesting, and I kind of wish that had been explored more, and the holiday killer stuff wasn't there at all. That would have been more interesting to me. But then you can't call it the last Halloween, so, or the long Halloween or whatever. So anyway, let's move on. Uh, Up next, we had Batman and Robin Year One, issue number 12. This is from Chris Samnee and Mark Waid, and it comes from a story that Samnee and Waid plotted together, and then obviously Waid handles the scripting and Samnee handles the art. Colors by Mateus Lopez and Clayton Cowles, with Chris Samnee handling the letters. Um, I, this was a fun series, 12 issues. It definitely showed the dynamic between Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson, in the early years. Dick is a little younger. He's like 10 years old. He's got a little more edge to him. He hasn't learned that maturity, that wisdom that comes with age that he kind of exhibits now as Nightwing. He's got kind of the exuberance and of youth and definitely a sharp tongue here, and it worked. And the other thing is that the style of Chris Samnee's art lends itself to feeling very old fashioned in a way, very Silver Age. And so, especially on the last few pages here, when kind of the climax is over, the action has been completed, we almost get some fan service moments of Batman and Robin that really evoke that classic feel. Batman wearing his blue costume as opposed to the black one that we're have seen more in recent years. So from that level, it definitely worked. I love Somnee's rendition of Jim Gordon. He draws him with the big bushy mustache, nice big chin. He looks like what I would envision a Jim Gordon, a Commissioner Gordon, to look like. So this was, I think, ultimately successful, and I think that both the creators, Waid and Samnee, accomplished what they set out to do, which is explore those early days of Dick Grayson and Bruce Wayne kind of learning to work together and be Batman and Robin. So yeah, I thought this was pretty solid. Probably, well, not probably, like if I were to pick a DC book, the best DC book this week, it would be this one without question. So anyway, what are your thoughts on it, Rocky?
Well, I loved it from the beginning. This 12 issue story of Batman and Robin year one, I thought it did what it wanted. It did what it was supposed to do. Establish that beginning, that first year relationship between a young Dick Grayson and Bruce Wayne. And it's not a given. I even felt suspense in this series as to whether or not Bruce Wayne would even be able to adopt Dick Grayson, even though I knew, of course, he would. But even the Child Welfare Services getting involved, and this Laura Lynn, who ultimately at the end of finally at the end of this series, throughout the course of the story, discovers that Bruce Wayne is a very good foster parent and recommends it to the judge. But getting there, there's a lot of ups and downs. Dick Grayson even becoming part of a foster family, and and the role he played there, and Bruce Wayne even in this issue, and Batman, you know, there was a point in this issue where Batman basically thinks his relationship with Robin is over, that he's going to lose Dick, and that he's maybe not a good foster parent, and he's questioning himself, only to discover that he is better than he thinks he is. Alfred knows that, even the child welfare worker knows that, and it's that process of discovery through the narrative over the last 12 issues that the reader discovers that as well. And I think it worked really well. Meanwhile, we got in the plot itself just some genius, really I thought really effective misdirection. We had the general introduced as the villain in the early issues, this Grimaldi character, only to find out he's killed right away or in the middle of the story, uh, and Batman's not even aware of it. Two Face takes him off the playing field, and the early character work between Grimaldi and his father, and we thought this was going to be a story about a mobster, the general coming to torture his, and sort of like torture his father because he's better than his father. He has daddy issues, et cetera, et cetera. So we got great character work, but then all of a sudden he's removed from the board. We got misdirection, and then we got Two Face coming in, and then Clayface, and then Grimaldi utilizing the Clayface formula to duplicate and take control of all of Gotham, all of Gotham's elite with the use of the Clayface formula, and just all of this weaved into a complex story that over 12 issues. I think this is going to make a fantastic trade. I'm very, very picky on the trades that I choose to get as in hardcover form. If this comes out in hardcover form, I'm going to get this because I think it's that good. I really do. And again, that's why I gave you a little pushback earlier when you talked about this week not being good, because I really enjoyed this, and I quite enjoyed the Long Halloween issue. So these two comics alone, I thought, put a smile on my face.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is the best. I'd give this like a C plus though. Like, yes, it's the best of the week, but it's yeah, just for me, these books just didn't land. So I don't know. It happens. It happens. Up next, we have Absolute Batman Annual number 1, 2025. Yeah, Absolute Batman 2025 Annual 1. So there's actually two stories in this. The main story written and drawn by Daniel Warren Johnson, and I'll just put it this way: like if you're a fan of Daniel Warren Johnson, this is maybe the most Daniel Warren Johnson comic you could ever possibly read.
Well
Um,
said.
yeah, I mean, seeing him get the giant dump truck Batmobile was cool. Um, but I mean, and if you're a fan of Daniel Warren Johnson, you're gonna love this, like without question. And I should
Yeah.
also say Mike Spicer handles the colors and Clayton Kell does the lettering. But when Batman's punching and kicking and I saw some people online, they're like, well, I don't know how that guy survived, and it was actually Scott Snyder's like, oh, I think I see his chest still moving. Okay, let's just call this what it is, right? Like if Batman were to punch and kick people the way he punches and kicks people the way that Daniel Warren Johnson depicts it, then no, nobody would survive. Somebody's head can't be smashed in, like wrapped around Batman's fist, and the person survived, right? Like it's very stylized art. It's very Daniel Warren Johnson. Like,
Yeah.
when he kicks somebody and they like bend in half, like
Uh,
more than bend in half, they're wrapped around his leg like Plastic Man, then no, the person's not going to survive. But that's Daniel Warren Johnson, right? And I love Dan, like as a person, as a creator, whatever. Daniel is amazing. I love the guy. He's so much fun to talk to, and he's just such a nice guy. Um, am I the hugest fan of his art style? No, but I enjoy it well enough for what it is. And yeah, I mean, look at that right there. Like, yeah, people are not going to survive that. That's just no. People are not. But that's the point. The point is, this is huge, over the top action. if you're reading this to say, oh, well, I thought Batman didn't kill, and look, he's killing. There's no way somebody could. You're missing the point. That's not the point of this. The point of this is to be completely over the top and
Uh,
celebrate Daniel Warren Johnson's style of storytelling and art. And this book does that in spades. And this kind of a character, Absolute Batman, big hulking, over the top Absolute Batman, is the perfect character for Daniel Warren Johnson to do something like this. And I love that they just turned him loose on this annual. To a lesser extent, James Herron is the same way with his mega series over at Image, and he does a backup story. And I don't think it's as successful as what Daniel Warren Johnson does, but it's still a heck of a lot of fun, and it accomplishes the same kind of thing. And I think it was good to put it in here because it gives the same kind of vibe. Um, but is this necessary? A necessary buy if you're an absolute Batman fan? No, there's nothing really consequential here that happens where if you were to skip this, you'd be, oh, I'm lost in the absolute Batman narrative. No, not at all. But it's cool, and again, seeing how he gets the giant dump truck is cool, and what have you. And yeah, I enjoyed it well enough. And there's a third story by Meredith McLaren that talks about bats and their propensity to work as a team and communities and what have you. It's got a bunch of facts or whatever, and I'm a fan of Meredith McLaren. I love her art style. The digital series that she does with Kelly Thompson, I love. The name of it escapes me right now, but I love that as well. Um, her style is so different than these other two, though. Maybe they put it in there as a little palate cleanser. But overall, I mean, this is a fun book. Um, but yeah, it's not necessary in terms of, hey, you got to read this before you read the next issue of Absolute Batman. But again, if you're reading this and then you're going to go on social media and point out that Absolute Batman killed a bunch of people in this annual, again, you are missing the point. You are missing the point. Nobody would survive. First of all, bodies wouldn't react like it. If you punch somebody in the face, their face doesn't warp around your fist like it's made out of silly putty. That's not reality, right? None of this is reality. It's comics. So maybe go outside and touch some grass. Anyway, what are your thoughts on it, Rocky?
well, there's a reason why Scott Snyder said that the original title for Absolute Batman was Batman AF.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason for that. Let's be blunt. If you've been enjoying Absolute Batman this long, you absolutely are going to love this particular annual, and there's no reason why you shouldn't, because he's just it's a ridiculously violent and over the top. It's a fantastical uh, exploration of at least in terms of illustrations. I mean, just a violent, epic uh, comic book, and it's awesome, and it's. I mean, I think it's a must read. The fact that this entire annual is basically a glorified origin of the Bat dump truck, at least that's how I view it. And you get this exorbitant violence in between. And of course, one thing that Scott Snyder does so well, and it appears to be a formula that has been massively successful for DC, even to Scott Snyder's surprise, even to DC's surprise, and probably even us as readers were a little bit surprised because as much as I love Absolute Batman, even I'm surprised by its popularity because I wouldn't have thought it would be that popular, but it is that popular, and it puts a big smile on my face because it is very violent. And this issue, Daniel Warren Johnson, this reminds me of his Wonder Woman Dead Earth, where Wonder Woman, by the way, in Wonder Woman Dead Earth, she eviscerates Superman like you wouldn't believe. You want to talk about an epic battle? Check out Wonder Woman Dead Earth. I love that. Daniel Warren Johnson, he was made to draw something like this. The story here is very sparse on details. It's just basically Bruce Wayne going to pick up some rubber bullets and some weapons from outside of Gotham, presumably to begin or start his war on crime in absolute Gotham City. And then of course it's just basically he gets beat up and then he goes back to get revenge and he ends up acquiring at the end a dump truck, a massive dump truck, over the top violence, and Scott Snyder, and this is Scott Snyder's style. He has he he has, or in this case, it's Daniel Warren Johnson, but Daniel Warren Johnson does a good job here of sort of imitating what Snyder does in his storytelling, and that is to say, you have exorbitant violence spruced in with a little bit of morality or some moral lesson, and in this case, it was flashbacks between Bruce Wayne and his father, telling him that no matter what you do, I'm going to be proud of you. And I got to wonder if that Bruce Wayne's father would really be proud of him, knowing that he's putting his fist through somebody's face. But in any event, this is a lot of fun, and I think this is. I mean, this is exactly this. I think you said the word before, palate cleanser. Of course, you were referring to the backup story, but I believe this is a nice palate cleanser, a nice violent palate cleanser um, for the month of October. Let's get Daniel Warren Johnson in there, a violent comic to clean up the beautiful mess of DC for October, which I just absolutely loved. And yeah, this was. I mean, this is the third comic in a row we've talked about that I've really enjoyed.
All right, moving on. We have Superman Red and Blue 2025 special. There's several stories in here. Priceless, written by Paul Dini, with art by Mirka Andolfo, colors by Arif Prianto, letters by Ariana Mayer. When I say colors, literally, it's red and blue, and then the white, negative space or what have you. Then we've got All the Time in the World, written, illustrated, and lettered by Michael Walsh. Out of the Ordinary, written by Dan Abnett, art by Caitlin Yarsky, colors by Alex Guermas, and lettered by Clayton Cowles. And then finally, Red Letter Days, written by Rainbow Rowell, art by Cian Torme, colors by Romulo Fajardo Jr., letters by Dave Sharp. I enjoyed the final story the most. It wasn't close. Interestingly enough, because it focuses on Lois a lot and her relationship with Superman, and or more to the point, her relationship with Clark. Which I've got deep love for Lois in my heart, so not a surprise that was my favorite. I don't really have much else to say other than that. Again, it was okay. Definitely not a must read. So anyway, what are your thoughts on it, Rocky?
I thought it was good. The last story you talked about was that you enjoyed the most was the one where basically Lois Lane is an editor at the Daily Planet and finds out the Metropolis is hosting the Olympics, the 2024, I guess, Summer Olympics, and she stops the presses, and there's some good quiet moments with Clark with Clark, and yeah, it was very nice. Uh, and also, we get more of the same. We get Superman really showing his humanity through most all the stories here, and the middle story, uh, which is Out of the Ordinary, written by Dan Abnett, artist by Caitlin Yarsky. I enjoyed that one as well, where basically Superman basically rescues a girl who basically is a young reporter, and he gives her quite a good interview in the small town. And again, it was just kind of a feel good story. And this is one of those things where that's what's good about these Superman Red and Blue specials. There was a Superman Red and Blue series a couple of years ago that we regularly reviewed that was good. It's always good every now and then to have a good, 8-page Superman story where they get to the heart of who Superman is and showing his humanity or some aspect of himself, some aspect of that trichotomy between Clark, Cal, and uh, I guess the duality of it. In any event, not bad. I again, I I've been enjoying the regular Superman title so much. I know Superman is an awesome guy. I don't really necessarily need this at this particular period of time, but it's a great comic. I like the cover. I like the color. It's pretty cool. But probably my favorite story, I'd go with Out of the Ordinary, writer by Dan Abnett. But beyond that, it's if you want to just feel good Superman stories, this is probably something you can pick up. But it's got stiff competition this week, and pretty stiff competition with DC overall, especially with the absolute titles.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, so I guess we'll talk about some independence now. It's so weird because, again, like we mentioned, this is a fifth Wednesday in the month, so there's just not as many books being released this week. Because again, it's a lot of specials and annuals or what have you. So I thought, I'm not going to necessarily talk about any of these titles in detail, but I'm like, what if I just because I have my list? What if I just quickly? I'm just going to read off every independent title that I picked up this month. Now I haven't read all of these yet, but I've read the majority of them. Um, and then I'll let Rocky talk about some, and I'll add because a lot of the ones that he's read, I've read as well. So, um, all right.
Yeah.
So there.
Before you do that, I just want to say that those watching on YouTube, I just wanted to get the indies that I have up on the screen are ones that I've been reading lately. So Jace might repeat some of that, but he probably will have many more indie titles
Oh
to
yeah.
add. But these were just the ones that, if you're wondering what's on the screen right now, I just for those watching.
Yeah, and actually, but before we even do that, I forgot. There are a number of collections out this week from DC as well that I should mention before we start diving into the independent titles. So let me do that really quickly. Um, so we've got Batman: The Brave and the Bold Across the Universe trade paperback. So this is the recent Batman: Brave and the Bold anthology series. This collects the final issues of that, issues 13 through 16. We also have Green Lantern by Robert Venditti omnibus. Venditti was the a writer that had the unfortunate honor of following Jeff Johns on the Green Lantern title. So I feel like his books didn't necessarily get the credit they deserved for how good they were. But anyway, it's a huge amount of stories. It's 856 pages for $100. We've got Justice League by Scott Snyder and James Tynion, Omnibus Volume 2, which obviously is collecting that run, issues 19 through 39, plus the entirety, unfortunately, of the Batman Who Laughs series 1 through 7, because this is all leading into to Dark Knight's Death Metal. So if you're a fan of that, you might want to check it out. We also have the long-awaited omnibus collection of All-Star Western from Jimmy Palmiotti and Justin Gray. A few different artists worked on it. Moritat, Darwin Cook did a few issues. In fact, he does the cover. They used his art for the cover. But this collects the entirety of the New 52 Jonah Hex All-Star Western series, issues 1 through 34. Or sorry, issues 0 through 34, actually. And if you buy this and you take it to a con that Jimmy is at, Jimmy will do a sketch inside it for free for you. So just throwing that out there. We also have the Wake trade paperback. This is early Scott Snyder and Sean Gordon Murphy. Collects the entirety of the series, 256 pages for $20. That's a great value. That was a Vertigo series back in the day. And then finally, House of Mystery Bronze Age Omnibus Volume 1 hardcover, collecting issues 174 through 200 of that 70s DC horror series, House of Mystery. So those are the collections that are out this week from DC. I wanted to throw that out there before we dive into some of the indies. So, all right. Let's see. I'm reading Kill All Immortals by Zach Kaplan. Kill All Immortals 2 by Zach Kaplan. That's from Dark Horse. Think Succession mixed with like Game of Thrones. It's a bunch of immortal Vikings who have amassed huge amounts of power in the corporate world. And they have made enemies along the way. Minor Threats, The Last Devil Left Alive. That's the Patton Oswalt, Jordan Blum universe that they've invited a lot of the creators to play in. It's so awesome. If you're a longtime comic fan, you're going to love the Minor Threats universe. I'm reading all of the, well, I should say Life number 6, which was a distillery series from Brian Azzarello and Stephanie Phillips that recently ended. Roots of Madness, which is an Ignition Press title from Stephanie Williams. I'm reading all the Ignition Press stuff. It's really fantastic. Department of Truth had a 0 issue came out this month with an Elvis story from Scott Snyder. That is a James Tynion book, so think horror conspiracy. I'm reading all the G.I. Joe stuff from Energon, both the Energon Universe one as well as the other G.I. Joe, like the original Real American Hero G.I. Joe that Larry Hama is continuing to write. All the Spawn stuff, so Gunslinger Spawn, Rat City as well, Ghost Machine books. I'm reading all of those. So Rockefellers 9 and actually Rockefellers 10 came out today. Rook Exodus. Rook is back from Jason Fabok. That's absolutely amazing. Back to the Spawn stuff with Sam and Twitch, Case Files, and Scorched. And I'm also, I'm not reading them because I've already read it, but this is the genius of Robert Kirkman, right? Like he paid Dave McKay to recolor all the Walking Dead stuff, and they're re-releasing all the entirety of the Walking Dead series, but 2 issues a month instead of 1, with new covers by David Finch. I'm buying the cover A of everyone that's from David Finch, because I'm a huge David Finch fan, and just to have the whole run in color. So yeah, Robert Kirkman's getting my money again. I mentioned Ignition Press, Deluge, um, Cul-de-sac, which is a vampire story from Bad Idea. Deluge, I just mentioned, that's Cullen Bunn doing horror over at Ignition Press. I read the first issue of Marion Heretic, which is from Boom Studios. It's the series that Tinny Howard said she's born to write. Jury's still out on that one. I found the first issue to be a little choppy, so we'll see. Also from my buddy Zach Kaplan, Masterminds, which is this weird conspiracy. If you like Zach Kaplan, you'll love it. Like, he's science fiction, conspiracy theory. There's puzzles to solve and whatever. But anyway, Masterminds, super super interesting. Um, Nemesis Forever from Mark Miller is, telling the story of Nemesis, which is a character he created over at Dark Horse, is great. The Guy in the Chair, first issue was very interesting. Hannah Rose May, who did Exorcism at 1600, she's doing this book over at Dark Horse that's really interesting about this guy who he's kind of a recluse and computer hacker or whatever, and that's the idea of the guy. He's the guy in the chair, the power behind the throne, as it were. Little bit of puppet strings pulling the puppet strings. Power Fantasy, which Rocky has up. I'll let him talk more about that. But Kieran Gillen, Casper Wingard. I got a chance to talk to Casper Wingard about it at New York Comic Con. It was a fantastic conversation. Hoping to have him on later to talk about it in more detail. I mentioned Energon Universe. I'm reading the whole thing. So Transformers is coming out as well. So that's on my list. I mentioned a few Bad Idea books. Save Now, which was officially released on the 15th of this month, but actually I got it early at New York Comic Con. But then the Chromium edition of issue 1, I bought that as well. That just came out today. Also Survive #2 from Robert Venditti and Doug Braithwaite, which is American spy on a Soviet submarine where a disaster happens, and it's only the American spy and one Soviet soldier left alive on the submarine as it's sinking, and they have to work together to escape. It's awesome. It is so good. Endeavor #1 is Stephanie Phillips' new series from Distillery, which is great. These super rich people, mostly super rich people, they go on this vacation on the Endeavor, like the old school sailing ship, all made out of wood, no electronics, whatever. It's kind of like a throwback, and these parents are thinking, hey, yeah, we'll go on this trip. There's no screens or electronics, it's a way to connect back with, with the family or whatever. I think it's a great job. There's character dynamics and drama. People aren't necessarily getting along. And then while they're doing this, they happen across somebody who's like shipwrecked and is just like in a little raft, and they bring them on board. Well, come to find out that person is like infected with this disease, and within like 2 days, all the adults die. So you just have the kids that have to continue sailing this boat, and what's going to happen, whatever. Like, super fantastic. I'm a huge fan of Stephanie Phillips. Love her work. So Endeavor from Distillery, I recommend that. Blue Falcon and Dynomutt, which is that old Hanna-Barbera cartoon that Dynamite has I think it was Hanna-Barbera. Anyway, it's a cartoon from when we were kids, Rocky and I, us old guys. And super fun, innocent kind of cartoon. Well, Jimmy Palmiotti gets a hold of it, putting out a series at Dynamite, and it's out there, and it's a lot of fun. And yes, I am reading some Dynamite books, even though I don't agree with their exorbitant covers. They've cut down on them some, but I had to talk with a few creators and I want to support their work, and they happen to do work at Dynamite. So I'm kind of being a little hypocritical and reading some Dynamite books, including Thundercats. I'm a huge fan of Thundercats. So I'm reading that. Bloodletter, which is a series that's in that Spawn universe. I'm reading that. Ghost Pepper, which is this futuristic story about like food trucks in a post-apocalyptic world. That's been a lot of fun. Over at Image, just finished Robert Kirkman's Invincible Universe Battle Beast. That was a ton of fun. The Lucky Devils from Charles Soule and Ryan Brown, which I've talked about on the channel before. Rogue Sun, which is in the Massiveverse, along with all the other Massiveverse titles, Radiant Black and all those. That's been fantastic. Issue 30 of Rogue Sun sold out. It's got a Spawn crossover, so no surprise there. Witchblade, I'm still enjoying from Top Cow. Don't Forget Your Briefcase from Mad Cave, about this kid that finds the nuclear football, which is really fun. Flash Gordon over at Mad Cave as well, which is written by our buddy Jeremy Adams, which is a ton of fun. I recently read a one-shot from Ahoy called Thanksgiving, which I Rocky read it as well and loved it even
That's
more
good.
than I did. It's
Mark
Mark
Russell.
Russell at his best. Oh my God. Like what happens in this book is I'm going to have Mark on soon to talk about it next week. It is so over the top crazy. Like you think your family's bad at Thanksgiving. Oh my God. This is crazy. So definitely check that out. Let's see. Terminator, I'm enjoying over at Dynamite. I mentioned Thundercats already. Murder Podcast, which is another Ignition Press book. I'm reading that. Deadly Tales of Gunslinger Spawn continues to be absolutely fantastic. Jimmy Palmiotti writing a Western at its best. Every artist that's been on there has been amazing. We've had Chad Harden do some issues. Yeah, it's been fantastic. Escape from Rick Remender. Can't remember who the artist is right now, but he does a fantastic job. I want to say it's. I'm not even going to say because I know who I'm going to say is wrong, but um, I can't remember who it is right now. But it's so good. That's so good. Exquisite Corpses is good in a disturbing way. I'm not the biggest fan of the art, but the art suits the story, so I'm okay with it. Hornsby and Halo. I mentioned the rocket uh, or the Ghost Machine stuff. Hornsby and Halo. I got caught up on that recently. That's fantastic. The Lazarus Property from Greg Rucka and Michael Lark has come back recently. Rocky's got it on his list as well. That's been a ton of fun. News from the Fallout. Chris Condon. That's got a really different out there art style, which I'm not usually a fan of, but works for the story. No Man's Land, written and drawn by Simon Kradusky, has been fun for the first couple issues. Sisterhood, a Hyde Street story, which is set in the Hyde Street corner of the Ghost Machine universe. Just had issue 4 come out last week. That's been great. Kirkman, I mentioned I'm a fan of Kirkman. He's getting my money. I'm a fan of David Finch. He's getting my money. They're both getting my money together on Skinbreaker, which took 8 years for David Finch to draw. And when I saw the first issue, I think I've said this before on the podcast. When I saw the first issue, I was like, oh my God, we're going to have to wait forever for this thing to come out because of the level of detail and all the double page spreads. Well, yeah, we're not going to have to wait forever because David Finch has been working on it for 8 years. So it's actually done. So it's going to come out on a monthly basis. I've been buying a regular issue of Skinbreaker, and also they're releasing it in treasury size. I bought the first 2 treasury size editions as well. And then Universal Monsters, The Invisible Man from James Tynion. First 3 issues of that have been fantastic as well. I'm not done. Expanse. I'm a huge fan of the Expanse, the novels and the TV show. So Boom has the license to print new Expanse stories, and they're continuing to tell stories coming from that world. And there's one right now called A Little Death. Its second issue just came out this week. That was a ton of fun. Focuses on the West Chatham character, Amos Burton. Oh man, it's so good. Uh, and then the second issue of Voyeur from Ignition Press came out today, and oh man, is it good and sexy and awesome. They sent me the first issue, like a press preview, but then they stopped. I haven't been getting press previews for them, so I'm not exactly sure. I reached out to the PR. I haven't heard back. Um, but I would like to be able to, once we get the indies going, I want to be able to spotlight their books. But I couldn't. I mean, I read it because this is coming out a day late. I got a chance to read it today. Like I bought it at my comic shop today. I mean, I would have bought it anyway, but I actually read an actual comic, Rocky, like a heart, like also save now because bad idea. It doesn't come out digitally. So I read actual physical comics today. It was a unique experience.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's it. Everything else that came out today, I'd mentioned in the past. So again, I know that was a ton of stuff. I think I mentioned almost everything. I mean, Rocky's got Last Boy that's done already, but I did read that from Dan Panosian. Um, yeah, you mentioned No Man's Eye. The only book up there I think that I did read. We're taking everyone down with us. I'm behind on that. I need to catch up on that, and I have not read the Jerry Dugan Falling in Love on the Path to Hell. So I haven't read that either. But other than that, and yeah, Tin Can Society gets my highest possible recommendation. So good. There's one issue left, but like the last issue came out in September, and the final issue doesn't come out till
Yeah.
December, so it's a big break between the two. So I'm hoping to find time to go and reread all the other issues before that final one comes out, just because I think it'll allow me to enjoy that final issue even more. So anyway, you guys wanted me to talk about independent, so yeah, that's a ton of independent books that I'm reading. Um, and I recommend all the books that I mentioned to one extent or the other, because there are other actually independent books on my list here, that I'm reading that I didn't mention because I, I'm kind of reading, and I wouldn't say I'm reading them reluctantly, but I can't. I wouldn't want you to go and spend your money because it might not be for everybody. But the ones I mentioned, I think, are all really, really good and worth checking out. So, all right, that's all you, Rocky. I know you don't have as
Yeah.
many as me, but
Well,
take it away.
uh, I approach this a little different insofar as I put the ones up here, and in fairness to Chase, we weren't able to collaborate prior to this. Otherwise, I would have put pictures or images of all of Jace's comics that you talked about, Jace. So that's on me, not on Jace. But I just sort of took. I love all of Ghost Machine. I love Ghost Machine. I love Flash Gordon. I love Jeremy Adams, Flash Gordon. I love I love Kill All Immortals. You mentioned Minor Threats. I'm collecting all the Minor Threats, the physical copies. Department of Truth, G.I. Joe, Gunslinger Spawn, uh, Assorted Crisis Events. I read Thanksgiving. I think it's great. I'll pick that up. And the Seasons by Rick Remender. He just finished the first arc, and that's coming out again. The Seasons is really good. But I put these up. I thought this was a nice. What's on the screen here is a nice, I think, sort of an eclectic array of comics that I thought are very different. And I'm definitely, I got all the physical copies of these. I love Skinbreaker. David Finch's art alone on Skinbreaker is amazing. I was with you in San Diego when you picked up I think the limited edition San Diego Comic Con copy or whatever. You even had it like signed. I
Yeah, the
think
ash
did you,
can.
Chase?
Yeah,
The hash can, yeah, the ash can. That's fantastic. The story of Skinbreaker it also was really good as well. I don't have the Treasury editions. I'm envious. Hopefully, I strongly anticipate. I think I'm going to wait. I'm sure there's going to be a hardcover Treasury edition of the first arc that'll come out for Skinbreaker, and I'll probably pick that up. Lucky Devils by Charles Soule, I think is such a fun story. It's hilarious. The idea of two devils basically trying to manipulate and disrupt the politics of hell by manipulating two humans to do good, so that it'll cause political dysfunction in the pits of hell and the various machinations that go on and how it affects Earth and hell. I think Charles Soule is just sort of like he did 8 billion genies, and this one is sort of along the similar vein, but obviously with a devilish bend to it. And I've really been enjoying that. Power fantasy, boy, we could talk a lot about that. We reviewed it for a time when we were reviewing indie comics, and I know you're still reviewing indie comics with on your channel. But Power Fantasy is just fantastic. What Kieran Gillen is doing, delving into the deeply moral implications of what would happen on Earth if we had like six or seven super ultra powerful beings and how they interact and their immortality and their power sets. It's just it's it's every single issue is along a timeline that takes place over decades, and it's just absolutely probably it's probably going to be one of those future evergreens as an independent title. Power fantasy, I can't recommend high enough. Lazarus Fallen by Greg Rucka. Greg Rucka wrote another comic book called The Old Guard, and The Old Guard has two movies with Charlize Theron about a group of immortals, and he's really good at. Greg Rucka is really good about he's really good at scripting girl bosses. And I realize right now, girl bosses in movies are sort of on the down low and they're getting a bad rap and everything. And maybe there's a movement away from girl bosses in movies. I don't know. But I can tell you that in terms of comic book writing, Greg Rucka is currently writing Cheetah and Cheshire for DC Comics. And he writes
bringing
Lazarus Fallen
Batwoman back.
and Batwoman back. That's right. So he's really excellent at writing strong-willed women, but women that are not Mary Sue's. He's very good at writing women that are deeply flawed in some way, and frankly knows how to script a really good tale. And Lazarus Fallen, it's so rich. I would recommend going back and starting from the beginning. Going into Lazarus Fallen cold might not be for everybody, but man, if you could go back and get the early volumes, it's about a world where there's instead of all the countries are run by families that are families slash corporations, and the way they intermingle and the politics involved in the espionage, and it's very complex, but it's very rewarding. I've been reading it for years, and it's just really good. No Man's Land is particularly good by Simon Kradransky. A murder takes place, but right after the Bay of Pigs invasion, and right before, in the months before Kennedy is assassinated, there's a murder that takes place in Alaska on a American Russian border, and this CIA agent who wants to retire is sent in. He wants to retire, but he's forced because he's got no choice. They won't let him retire, so they send him in to investigate this murder, and it's well. Let's just say Simon Kuninsky does a very good job scripting a tale. Pulls you right into the first issue. I've just finished reading one issue. I haven't read the second issue yet. Falling in Love on the Path to Hell. I mean, it's cowboys and samurai. Come on, man. I love Jonah Hex. I love the cowboy character here. I mean, you couldn't get two different characters, two different scripted characters. Somehow, Gary Dugan makes you believe that a Japanese woman samurai can fall in love with a Western cowboy, and just the sort of the time displacements and the machinations that go on there, and the way that even the villains, everything, it's again, I don't want to talk forever here, but again, I would highly recommend it. The first arc, I'm sure you can. I think you can pick it up in a trade right now. The Last Boy by Dan Panosian. What I love about Dan Panosian is he's a guy that wants to do some interiors. He does interior art. Part of my pet peeve, I love cover artists like Adam Hughes, for example. I wish he would do more interiors. Like J. Scott Campbell, really good, but I would love to see more interiors from these amazing artists. But I understand they make more money just doing covers, but I so respect them when they do interiors. And Dan Panosian, man, The Last Boy, about an older Peter Pan coming into some stark realizations about what's really going on in the world that he resides in, and how everyone sort of, what happens when you grow up, when all the little boys sort of grow up again, where does that leave Peter Pan, and who the villain is, the final page, the reveal, and in the final fifth issue of Last Boy is really good. I highly recommend that if you're into fantasy and if you like a good Peter Pan story. We're taking everyone down with this. What do you do when you're a young girl and your dad, who is the arch villain, who is basically the Lex Luthor of a universe of a particular world, when he dies and you're the sole survivor? Do you follow your father's legacy, or do you do something else? And if you have people that are looking to find you to kill you, and everyone has an agenda, that's the adventure that the young girl is on. Is she going to take everyone down with her, or is she going to follow in her father's footsteps? Those are the questions that Matthew Rosenberg explores, and I think it's again, it's just it pulls me in. I've got 4 issues in front of me. The first 4 issues in front of me. I've only read the first 3. I'm behind in my readings. Tin Can Society is, again, a very complex tale, but one that really is grounded in character about a group of kids. It's sort of like Stand By Me, the movie Stand By Me meets superheroes. And in this case, we got one superhero who grows up to be a superhero and ultimately is murdered. And that murder mystery ensues through the issues. And as the story is told, there's revelations and misdirections that are revealed, and yeah, it's you got to pick it up to read it. Minor Arcana is an ongoing story. Jeff Lemire. I'm really enjoying this. I really prefer Jeff Lemire's independent work to his DC work. I think Minor Arcana has better character work than even his Absolute Flash and his JSA, quite frankly. And I really find it enjoyable about a young woman who returns to her small town and takes over her mother's sort of a psychic shop, and deals it. Minor Arcana is a reference to tarot cards, and while her mother, she always thought of her mother as sort of a fraud who manipulated people about pretending to be psychic, in fact, perhaps was, and she discovers that maybe she's got some psychic powers of her own, and it leads into other things. But anyways, those are the ones that are generally on the top of my reading pile. Of course, there's so much more, but yeah. Again, not only is it a great time to be a DC Comics fan, but it is arguably as much a great fan or more to be an independent comics fan as well.
Yeah, there's so many great books coming out right now. It makes it kind of tough to kind of limit. Again, I know everybody can't afford to buy all these, and I'm lucky enough to get press preview copies of some of this stuff. But yeah, and some of the books that we've talked about, like Rocky talked about, No Man's Land second issue just came out today. Voyeur second issue just came out today, which I have here. So Rocky, if you want to switch over to that screen that whenever I'm showing those cards, because I think that'll be better for people to be able to see the
Okay.
size of this. So this is the Treasury. This is the first issue, Treasury edition
Okay.
of Skinbreaker, and then the second one that came out today. Let me hold it up as well, so you get an idea of just how big they are. They're fantastic. And here's Voyeur number 2. So this will give you a good idea, so you can kind of see. So that
Hmm.
I'm lining up the corners, right?
Naughty cover.
Yeah, yeah, a
Yeah.
little, yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I had a hard
Uh,
time choosing which cover. You can see how much bigger.
can
And
you
then yeah,
open
if
up
you just
Skin Breaker?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh
I do
man, that
I
looks
do sort of
amazing.
yeah I do sort of wish it was in black and white. They are going to do black and white versions of of the books as well, and then they'll get my money again because that ash can like that Rocky mentioned that they gave away during the Energon panel, and then they also gave it away in the press room. But it gives you an idea of yeah
Yeah.
the level
How
of
much is
artwork.
that Treasury Edition? How much is that Treasury Edition? What's the price tag?
Treasury edition. I want to say it was 14.99. I thought it was 9.99, but no, yeah, 14.99. I know something that was actually this might have been more too. I know the first chromiums that Bad Idea started putting out, like the Valiant books back in the day, were 9.99. But I mentioned Save Now and how it officially was released on the 22nd of October. I'll take it out of the plastic. But it was available early at San Diego Comic Con. Yeah, Rocky's got his copy of issue 1 right there. Um, but the Chromium came out today, and the Chromium, yeah, I think it was nine. I think it was 9.99. Um, so I don't know if you can see just how shiny it is, and
Yeah.
it's all yeah. And then the back is the first Bad Idea book that they
Oh,
ever put out.
ENIAC, right?
ENIAC, but it's not. I mean, it's if you open it up, it's not. There's no ENIAC pages inside. It's just they put that cover on there. So yeah, I had to
Yeah.
get even though I bought is one of the few things one of the only things I bought for myself at New York Comic Con was the 3 different variant New York Comic Con exclusives for Save Now, and I got to read it early. Um, and then then it came out, and I bought the regular issue at my comic shop last week, and then this week they had one copy of the Chromium, so I picked that up as well. Had to be done. It had to be done. So anyway, if I had to pick a book of the week, if I had to recommend one book this week that came out this week, I'm gonna cheat a little bit and say get the Chromium of Save Now. Hopefully your comic shop has the number 1 from last week. If you don't want to spend the money on the Chromium, you could just pick up the regular. Um, and it's 12. The Chromium's 12.99. So I think the first Chromium that they put out for I think it was Planet Death was when they brought the Chromiums back. It was 9.99, and Rocky and I are partly to blame for this because when we were at San Diego Comic Con and we met Dinesh. Actually, that was when I got to introduce you to Dinesh, and he showed us the Chromium and said it was 9.99. Rocky and I both said, "Oh, you got to charge, you got to charge more, man. It's too good." So sorry, everybody, you're spending $3 more than you would have. And it's all our fault. But yeah, I definitely recommend Save Now. The moral implications of the story that Matt Kent has come up with is fascinating. Thomas Giarello is handling the art, same artist on Planet Death. It's so good. It's so good. But really, when we're talking about choosing, an independent book for book of the week, especially because we haven't been covering independents in a while, and so I haven't had the opportunity to shout something out. And I gave a huge rundown of so many books. It's so hard to pick just one. Um, but I picked Save Now because it did just come out last week officially, and again this book, the Chromium came out today, so I'm cheating a little bit, but so many independent books worthy of your time. Honestly, it's hard to pick just one, but if I had to break it down, yeah, I'll go with Save Now.
Yeah. No. Uh, I really like Save Now. Boy, I wasn't even thinking about ranking them, to be quite frank. I've been really
Well,
Oh
I only
man.
say it just to give a book of
Yeah.
the week because we usually do. I think people kind of expect it, so I'll
Yeah, Save
throw it
Now
on.
is really, really good. I love the time travel aspect of being sort of like repeatedly having the lead character repeatedly reliving the same sequence of events, hoping to save the world, but continues to fail, and so he has to keep figuring out try to new ways, and he keeps failing, and the first issue, it's really a fantastic setup, and you have a feeling of hopelessness and sorrow for the character, and so I'm really curious to see how this thing is going to end and how he's going to overcome it, and his teammates and what they know, and it's a fantastic setup. It really, really is Safe Now. So it's hard for me to disagree with you, but yeah, it's good. I'm not going to disagree with you.
Yeah, yeah, it's awesome. I almost picked Voyeur. Like if I had to, if you said okay, you can't pick Save Now, you got to pick something that actually came out for the first time this week. I probably would go with Voyeur. Um, I won't show the cover again because again, it is a woman in her underwear. But I want to show something that really stuck. So written by Leigh Williams, David Baldeón handles the art. David Baldeón does something on a couple pages that's really awesome. Um, so I don't know how well you guys can see that with the kind of a little bit of a glare on my light. But one of the main characters that we met at the end of the first issue, she's just to show time. She's traveling. She's on her way to that resort that we saw her at in the first one, and he's got her body position is the exact same in every panel, but it shows. It's almost like something Tom King would do, right? Like it shows movement because of the surroundings around her change. So we get that she's on her way to get on the airplane, and then later, once she arrives on the island, we get a similar one on this page where you can see. Let me. It's
Yeah,
backwards, yeah. So you can see, she's just kind of standing there, and it's just her surroundings that change. So that's about all the interiors I can show you because the book does get a little bit naughty. But man, it's so good. It's so good. And again, go check out my. I have a little short on YouTube that talks about Voyeur and gives a little more background into it. And I'm hoping to get Leigh Williams on to talk about it at some point because that is just a fantastic book. But again, for mature readers, there is nudity and obviously bad language and what have you. But yeah, highly recommend Voyeur.
yeah.
So yeah, I think that, yeah. Go ahead, Rocky.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I'm glad to show Leigh Williams some love since she might be because she was her Power Girl series was canceled, but I gotta tell you, her voyeur looks like she's drawing and or not drawing, but she's scripting another girl who's appears to be pretty powerful in other ways. So
Oh yeah, yeah.
my
It's
Tyrion fanboy is she she's still tickling my fancy. She may not be writing Power Girl, but Voyeur is a pretty good follow up.
yeah, yeah. David Baldeón just killing it on the art as well.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's gonna do it for this episode, everybody. Thanks for joining us as always. Don't forget to head over to the Comic Source YouTube channel as well for all the other Comic Source content that comes out. Once you're there, like, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of the content. And obviously, all the content is available on the Comic Source podcast feed as well. Just go to whatever app or platform you get your podcast from, do a search for the Comic Source and subscribe. And obviously, if you're listening audio only and you ever want to see the art or Rocky and my smiling faces when the DC Spotlight comes out every week, typically on Tuesdays, sometimes later, then head over to Rocky's channel, Comic Space Boom, ! On YouTube. Once you're there, like, comment, subscribe. Ring that notification bell. So again, you know when the content comes out. And I really can't stress enough how much we love getting comments because, I mean, we wouldn't have focused a little bit more on independence this week and added that in as part of the DC Spotlight if you guys hadn't told us in the comments that that's what you wanted. So we read the comments. We pay attention to the comments. So again, that's how you can kind of engage with us and let us know what you think. And yeah, a lot of plans. It all comes down to time. I just don't have time. Like I want to we've talked before about doing a once a week live show possibly to help out with engagement. We could talk about independence there. But yeah, it's all just a matter of time. Like especially because I've been traveling so much from the day job and what have you. Just haven't had the time. But we appreciate you guys. Thanks so much for tuning in as always. And we'll talk to you next time.
Catch you later.